What's going on, guys? Welcome to the show today. I am joined by a special guest, my guy, Micah Fragrance. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Hey, I'm excited to do this house dive with you. We are going to talk today about the House of Mont Blanc. I have the pro version of Chat GPT, and throughout the week, anytime I want to learn about different things in fragrance, I'll just sit there and talk to it. When I'm driving to work, I'll ask it about fragrances and deals and histories and stuff. And I've been really impressed by its way of being able to like consolidate and tell me about a fragrance house and then like go into different nooks and crannies about stuff I never learned about. Mont Blanc is a very popular brand. Everybody's aware of it, everybody's seen it. But what I've found with some of my house dives is you don't know everything about a house. And sometimes when you know a little something about a house, it really helps your buying experience and your curiosity. Like we did an episode on Ferragamo and found out they started in Italian fashion, mainly leather. So it makes sense why a lot of their fragrances smell like, masculine luxury. And it makes sense why they made an entire leather line: red leather, spicy leather, original leather, bright leather. It's cool to know because now it's like, well, hey, if I want a designer leather, Ferragamo is a great house to look at because they've been doing it for 100 years. With Mont Blanc, I think everybody knows Mont Blanc fragrances. And even today with FragCom, people know even a little bit more than normal. Like, for instance, oh, Mont Blanc Explorer is Creed Aventus, and like just little like nook and cranny stuff about the brand, not just the fragrances themselves. But I want to dive into how the house was established because I think when you look into that, you get a better understanding of why the fragrances smell the way they smell and what a brand is going for to determine if it's a house that might pique your interest, or maybe you find out, you know what, cool story, bro, but I don't really connect with that, and you can move on to another brand. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about Mont Blanc. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking, and then I'm going to give you guys a break from my long-winded cached voice, as you guys can tell, and let Micah take up some airtime. So Micah, you ready to dive into this sucker? First off, let me ask you this. Do you know anything about the House of Mont Blanc?
They make pens. I know that.
Hey, that's one fact more than I knew before going into this. Okay, anything else?
Um, Big rivalry with Creed since like the 2000s, something like that. But that's about all I know, other than like the basic stuff.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and dive into a timeline, and I want people to read along with us. I'm going to pull an excerpt into the chat here so you guys can follow along with me. So let's start with this. Here's the origin story, which begins in 1906. And we're just going to hit you guys with some timelines. So in 1906, the company that would become Mont Blanc is founded in Berlin and soon after operates in Hamburg, Germany, I believe. Is it Hamburg, Germany?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. And they initially focused on making reliable fountain pens. In 1909 to 1910, the early pen models Rouge et Noir and Mont Blanc helped to define the brand's direction. So Mont Blanc was actually the name of a signature pen that they created in 1910. 1913, the iconic white six-pointed star emblem is adopted, often explained as the view of the Mont Blanc snow cap from above, and becomes one of luxury's most recognizable name brand marks. And I would say so too. I mean, you recognize the Mont Blanc logo, you could probably see it from space, right? um, and it does look cool. My favorite look to that logo is just jet freaking black with that white logo. I think that's the most iconic for me. Um, even as you guys see in their private line, it's almost like the Apple experience, rounded edges. It's just smooth, simple, um, looks professional. Have you ever had a Mont Blanc pen?
Never, because they're like crazy expensive.
Are they? Okay, so they're like collector's items now. You can't just get
Well,
like,
well, I I know some of them aren't too expensive, but how much writing am I really gonna do? You know?
Yeah. I always wondered as my kids got older if they would even be taught how to write because, everybody is text to talk now, and they're on computers. I just looked up, I was curious to see if you can get a Mont Blanc pen online. And the prices I'm seeing is there's a Star Walker pen, which goes for $300. $493, 495. Okay, so this is just ridiculous. That's our goal, Micah. We need to get a Mont Blanc freaking pen.
Yeah. There we go.
We need to get on Mercari and get a pen so we can really understand the heritage and see if their pens are really legit. They got to be legit. You don't just charge $500 for a pen just because you've been around since horses were around. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Okay, so in 1924, the legendary Meisterstück, I'm assuming that means Stuck, who knows, the Meisterstück name appears, cementing Mont Blanc's position as a prestige writing instrument maker. Just say pen maker, good grief. So much poetry in the history. After 1924, we really don't get another timeline marker until 1977. Mont Blanc is acquired by Alfred Dunhill. I don't know if that actually is the same as the Dunhill fragrances that we see. I'll have to look into that. But the brand is pushed more decisively into a broader luxury category. Luxury categories beyond just pens. So 1977 is really the moment they say, we've been doing this pen thing for 70 years. We might want to try making something else. 60 years of making pens is crazy. So then we hit 1993, and this is a really important moment. So Montblanc becomes part of the Richemont Group, placing it in a major luxury portfolio and accelerating its expansion into categories like leather goods, watches, and eventually fragrance. So fragrance didn't really kick off until the mid 90s, which is really before Micah was even thought of, right?
Yeah, it was well before I was thought of.
All right. So really the concept of moving into fragrance was just before Micah was brought into this world. So essentially Micah grew up with Mont Blanc in a way.
Yeah.
In the fragrance world, they're like the same age. Anyway, okay, so why this matters for fragrance in terms of the transition in the 90s. So Mont Blanc perfumes are meant to smell like the brand looks and feels, which is clean lines, polished materials, executive level confidence, and a signature style branding. You'll see a star, an emblem, a legend, an explorer, etc. All very Mont Blanc coded language. All right. Any comments on that before we move into the fragrance side of things?
No, I mean, I definitely learned some stuff, but yeah, it's kind of weird how they just kept evolving, you know?
Yeah, basically what I gathered from it is, hey, we made pens for 50 years, right? Then a company came in and bought them out and said, hey, look, cool pens, bro, but we need to do something else. And they're like, well, but we've got all these pens. And they're like, yeah, but we need to make more money. So let's make some other stuff. So they started putting their heads together. And it seems like outer external forces is what really pushed them into fragrance. Probably as an investment thing, like, hey, we need to expand this brand. You guys have the name recognition. You made great pens. Let's see what else we can do with this name. And so now we enter into the 2000s, and this launches the build foundation for Mont Blanc. Mont Blanc's modern fragrance story kicks off in the early 2000s when the brand begins releasing masculine scents, positioned as elegant, accessible luxury. My favorite, perhaps, fragrance from the Mont Blanc line is the first fragrance they made in 2001, Mont Blanc Presence. Widely cited as the brand's first big men's fragrance era opener, a warm, spicy, ambery, boardroom evening energy. I completely disagree with that characterization. I've always felt Mont Blanc presence felt cold. I don't get amber, even on my skin. I always tell people Mont Blanc presence is like sipping a glass of ice water while driving a gray Jaguar or a white Bugatti. All white interior. You kind of get this new car smell, fresh, clean, cold, floral aspect. It's the first time I really smelled heliotrope as a floral. And heliotrope just kind of has this like, it's like a suit and tie floral. It just feels very fancy. And I almost get like a minty vibe from Presence. But Presence really isn't talked about a lot. You know, a lot of fragrance influencers, you know, old farts like me have jumped in and said, hey, by the way, guys, have you tried Mont Blanc Presence? It's only 15-20 bucks in Burlington. And if you like Explorer and Legend and all that stuff, just give it a shot. And I even did a memoir on it because I think it gives you something that you really won't find in the rack store. It's a different type of smell. If you don't like it, cool, but you can't deny that it just brings something different to the Mont Blanc line. And I really think it's special. Have you tried Presence?
I've not. I've seen it so many times at my rack stores, but I've never tried it.
It truly is special. And it's one of the rare Mont Blancs that isn't sharp. I think Mont Blanc is decisively a statement maker. The way when you spray it, I don't want to just say it's sharp because that seems like a negative thing. But when you spray on a Mont Blanc fragrance, it's in the air. You know it's there. It announces itself pretty aggressively. And Presence is cool because you get that loud announcement, but it's one of the smoothest balanced fragrances in the rack store lineup. Anyways, I'm going to move fast now. 2003, they dropped Mont Blanc Individual, which is a key cult favorite in the community, positioned as a distinctive and personable fragrance, and it helped keep Mont Blanc on the radar to enthusiasts. Then 2005, we get Starwalker Original, which is a clean, modern, woody, spicy fragrance that fit the sleek metal and glass aesthetic Mont Blanc was known for at the time. Honestly, forget all that clean, wood, spicy talk. It smells exactly like that second definition. Metal and glass. It's a pretty, like, basic scent. I always say, like, Starwalker is the most office safe fragrance possible. It's like white, crisp air, splash of bergamot, and then they have this like bamboo note, which people say they can smell it. I highly doubt it. Who the heck can tell me what bamboo smells like? Micah, do you know what bamboo smells like?
Probably smells like a whole lot of nothing, dude.
A whole lot of nothing. I mean, you got a better chance asking a panda what bamboo smells like because they actually eat it. But yeah, it's just a clean office scent. And I do like it. You know, it's one of those things where it's like when you're first building. You ever go through this, Micah, where you go to the rack store, you're early on in your journey, and you're just happy if you can buy a $20 fragrance that smells good? You know, it's like you buy it and you're like, man, I know I'm at Ross, and so I shouldn't walk out of here with something that's amazing. But if I could just walk out of here with something that I would at least smell it and be like, this is my only requirement for a rack store. If I can just go home and smell the fragrance and go, yeah, I'd wear it. Like, that's a win for me. You know, you can't expect the moon and the stars from rack store. These days, you guys are spoiled little brats because now the clones are getting in there, and then you get some of the designers creep in, like, you know, the Coach series and some more of the Mont Blancs. And there's a lot more options than back in the day in the rack stores. It used to be very limited selection, you know, just CK galore, you know, just CK everywhere. But now, but yeah, that was always my requirement early on in my journey, is like, if I could at least say, yeah, I'd wear this, then that was a good pickup in the rack store. What's your experience been in the rack store? Do you rack store much?
Yeah, so I don't go to like, my TJ Maxx and Ross nearly as much as I used to first getting into my fragrance journey. But a lot of the times I'd find something, whether it's like one of the cheaper Hugo Boss fragrances, some
Mm,
CK, CK1, CK1 Shock. I had, tried a bunch of the fragrances that I kept seeing there, and for the most part, I mean, they're solid. They're popping up in those stores because they're gonna sell.
right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think as a whole, apart from like weird Spider-Man fragrances and Toy Story fragrances, I feel like generally, you got some good pickups. And even like Hugo Boss Scent Magnetic, Aqua di Gio Profondo, I found those in a rack store and bought them.
You want to know something crazy? I don't know if you know this fragrance, but I was in a TJ Maxx a couple days ago, and Guerlain's Shalimar was in there.
Oh, I've heard of Guerlain.
Yeah, Shalimar is like the fragrance from Guerlain. It's for women, but Shalimar is a fragrance that they literally have 100 versions of. There's shout out to Mitra out there. There's women out there that collect special edition Shalimars that come out every year. And it has no business being in a TJ Maxx. That's almost blasphemy. But you learn different things about these rack stores, right? Like you learn that in TJ Maxx, you can find niche that just somehow pops behind the glass. I've seen Creeds pop up in TJ Maxx's. I've seen Guerlain's pop up in there. You even get into stuff like Hermes, and different brands that kind of creep down in there. And then you learn things like TJ Maxx has a glass section, and then they have an open clone section where it's just all clones that you can take and spray in the air. And then Ross carries more of the designers. You might get more of an exclusive Dolce & Gabbana creep in there, or a Coach, or a Hugo Boss. I found Hugo Boss the Scent Magnetic in Ross. That's crazy. I've found the scent Le Parfum. I've found the scent Original. That is freaking nuts that you can find that in a Ross. So, but speaking to the Mont Blanc, have you smelled Presence Individual or Star Walker?
So I owned Individual, and
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy it. To me, it was like a raspberry dryer sheet sort of scent. A little fun fact with Individual, that was, a huge fragrance for Mont Blanc. And Creed actually ended up copying that fragrance, turned it into original Santal, and that's what kind of like kicked off the rivalry between them, so to speak.
Now, see, Micah, you might get crucified for making that comment because, the snobs in Fragcom would lead you to believe that niche brands don't clone people.
Look at Bond number 9, that's all they do.
Hey, save that for your YouTube channel, man. Don't
Hey.
get me, don't get me, don't get me canceled, man. I'm already controversial. No, I'm kidding. I'm glad you said that because these kind of things need to be known. It's like there's nothing new under the sun. Um, but yeah, so those are the three fragrances between 2001 and 2005 that really set Mont Blanc on fire in terms of being taken seriously as a fragrance house. So let's go ahead and move into the licensing era. And this is what we're going to kind of zoom through, but this is basically where they got into the licensing space, which for those of you guys don't know, this is basically where it's like a distribution deal. This is what set them on fire to be put into stores that regular everyday folks shop in all the time. So in January 2010, Inter Parfums announces a borderline 11-year license agreement with Mont Blanc to create, produce, and distribute their fragrances, which was effective in 2010 of July. Reporting around that deal notes the previous fragrance license that was held by Procter & Gamble, a common pattern in designer perfumery where large groups handle the manufacture and distribution weight of fragrance making under a license deal. In 2015, the partners renew and extend the license again, reflecting a strong commercial momentum. So they did well after setting up that mass distribution So much so that they relicense. And again, guys, I apologize for my voice. It's completely cash, but I don't care. We're going to shoot content and we're going to put out content. So now, what did Inter Parfums do for the Mont Blanc brand? This is the distribution licensing company. So it tightened Mont Blanc's fragrance identity into a consistent, but more importantly, high volume mainstream portfolio. And that's just fancy jargon for meaning they put their name and their brand in every store possible. And so they'd have these hero pillar fragrances that came with a bunch of flankers. They had a strong department store presence, and they had storytelling aligned with Mont Blanc's luxury archetypes, which were heritage, signature, exploration, and emblematic masculinity. And you got to remember, this is during a time in the 2000s where commercials and magazines were everything for advertising fragrance. And so you're going to get tons of commercials with women, exotic looking women, really clean cut professional looking men. You know, with Mont Blanc, you're going to get the prestige, the professionalism, the sleekness. Women, you know, what's the saying? Women want him and men want to be him. You know, so there was just a lot of advertising done in the department store space where you have these big cutouts and posters and things. Then you have commercials. And then you have magazines with scratch and sniffs. That was a big thing. Micah, have you ever seen a fragrance inside of a magazine?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so that was huge to be able to go buy a magazine and smell a fragrance. I know for me, that never really worked. You'd always smell magazine eau de parfum. You know what I'm saying? Like the magazine material always came with the fragrance. So if it was like a winter fragrance, you could smell it more. But if it was like spring, summer, you were just smelling magazine and you would just sit there scratching it all day long. I used to try to think of different ways to scratch it. Like maybe if I scratch it with a penny, it'll smell better. Maybe if I scratch it with a fingernail, it'll smell better. Maybe if I just rub the pages together and don't scratch the material. Like this is just ridiculous stuff, but it was a fun time. But anyways, so, yeah, have you ever seen like a fragrance commercial?
Yes, I have. Like
Do you
that.
remember any?
Yeah, that iconic Versace Eros commercial.
Mm-hmm.
If you know the one I'm talking about,
Of
where he's
course.
he's in the water, or that Prada Luna Rosa one where like I think it's Jake Gyllenhaal. He's like on a boat or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
there's
remember the Sauvage one with the Pirates of the Caribbean guy?
yes, yeah, Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Johnny Depp, man. I mean, they were just selling sex in a bottle, right? So, yeah, you know, I'm surprised you don't see more of that now, like especially in the streamer space. Like you can just run commercials through, you know, all the influencers. It seems like it'd be cheaper to do branding, and they probably do. I just don't see it. But anyway, so they scaled the company to a much bigger visual presence with that mass distribution deal because with that came all the marketing weight of the distribution as well. So across all these phases, Mont Blanc fragrances have stayed remarkably consistent in positioning. So this is what Mont Blanc means today in terms of the mission statement, I guess. So style over experimentation. They're not trying to make something complex. These releases are usually designed to be wearable first, clean structures, familiarity, you know, fougere, woody aromatic, spicy amber, and mass appeal. Number two, they want to be signature. That's why their names reflect that. Legend, emblem, presence, explorer. Mirror the brand's core promise, which is that your scent is your personal mark, which matches their whole theme with their pens. Their pens, you have custom pens so you can create your signature. Now, the pens get replaced with the fragrances, and now the fragrance is like your signature. And then lastly, accessible luxury, typically priced to compete hard in the designer retail market. And it's why Mont Blanc performs so well at the discounters too. Your camera's all good now, Micah.
Yeah,
So
like bugged out.
all good. I bugged out on my camera earlier. I just didn't tell you about it, but we're going to let it rock. One thing I wanted to do just real quick, and then we're going to wrap up here, is I just wanted to roll through a timeline of their fragrances because I want people to know what fragrances exist. I think a lot of people just don't know how deep Mont Blanc's bag actually is. So I'm just going to like speed through these fragrances and then I'm going to ask you a question. Okay.
Okay.
2001, Mont Blanc Presence. 2003, Individuel. 2004, Mont Blanc Presence Cool, which is a flanker. 2005, Starwalker. Presence Dune Femme. So they had a female Starwalker. 2006, Starwalker Extreme. 2007, Individual Tonic. 2008, Presence Intense. 2009, Starwalker Night. 2011, Legend. 2012, Legend Intense. 2013, Legend Special. These guys were like kicking out fragrances almost like the clone game now. But the clone game, at least these guys are doing it once a year. The clone game is like 375 fragrances a year. But anyway, this might have felt to a lot of people like how the clone guys do now. But anyways, 2014, Emblem Legend Spirit. 2015, Emblem Intense. 2016, Legend Night. Legend Night Emblem Absolute. 2018, Explorer. 2019, Explorer Ultra Blue. 2020, Legend EDP and Explorer EDP. 2022, Legend Red and Explorer Platinum. 2024, Legend Blue. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, which a lot of people have no clue about, is Mont Blanc has a private line. And before I announce the private line stuff, I just wanted to ask, what Mont Blancs do you have?
So I had a lot more. Currently, I just have Mont Blanc Legend Eau de Parfum, nice, easy signature scent. But I owned Explorer, I believe it was the Eau de Parfum, Individual, Legend Red, and I think that's it. And Starwalker Extreme.
How did how did you like Starwalker Extreme?
I liked it. It was interesting because it was almost like there was no aquatic notes, but I almost got this sort of aquatic vibe from it. It was like this aquatic tonka bean. A
Mm-hmm.
really interesting fragrance. I personally enjoyed it. Um, and it was just like it's not something I had ever smelt before.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since, I haven't really smelt anything that smelt quite like it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize it smells nothing like original Starwalker. If you thought you were gonna get something that smells just like it but more intense or something like that, no. Starwalker Extreme goes a completely different direction. Fragrances I've had from the brand, I have Presence, I've had Individual, Legend, Legend Blue. Um, I've had Explorer, obviously Starwalker. I've had a lot of them. I think for me, you know, stuff that stands out was Presence, which is kind of crazy because that was the first one they dropped. I love Presence. I probably won't do a memoir on any of the other ones, but not because they're not good, but to me, a memoir is a masterpiece, and Presence really did that for me. But a lot of their fragrances I really did enjoy. But something I'm going to say is a lot of you guys don't know that Mont Blanc has a private collection, and most designer brands do. You just don't hear about them because they're not as accessible to the public. And I want to show you guys in 2019 and in 2019, 2020, and then 21 to 23, we get the private line. Have you heard of anything from the private line?
I have not, no.
Okay. So this is cool because you got to get into this, Micah, at least from a sampling standpoint, because if anyone kind of harped on Mont Blanc for being like cheap designer in any way, they have a private line, and they're significantly richer and more creative. Doesn't necessarily mean they beat other ones out. That's up to you. But if you want to smell stuff that imitates what a lot of niche is trying to do, which is like have these creative ideas or at least build on complexity, in 2019 to 2020, they created their private line and started with the following fragrances: Patchouli Ink, Vetiver Glacier, Amber Moon, Oud Tobacco, Santal Wood. It'd be interesting to see if that smells close to the Creed fragrance you were talking about. Lavender Extreme. And then in 2021 to 2023, we have Fougere Marine. That sounds interesting. Rose Noir, Citrus Rose, and Leather Oud. And matter of fact, before I kind of close here, let me show you guys this recent pickup. So, one thing I was reading up on earlier is it is a little bit hard to find these, but I've been getting a lot of success on Mercari. If if you see like discovery sets that sell for like $50 to $150, you know, when you start looking into like Nichon A and Javoy and all that, obviously you don't want to spend that, you know, a fragrance price for a sample set. So what you should do is look on like Mercari, because a lot of people buy those sample sets, they spray it twice and they're like, I'm going to buy the fragrance or I'm not. They're not going to wear the full thing. They're going to try and get some of their money back. So if they bought the Javoy set for 75, they're going to smell it and try to go flip it and get as much money back as possible on Mercari. So this set was a lot more expensive than I got it for. And I think I got it for like $15. So when it comes to discovery sets of private lines, Mercari is a really great place to go, because yeah, there might be a couple sprays gone in them, but all you want to do is try as many fragrances as humanly possible. I'm a big fan of, don't buy a couple decants from a house that everybody tells you to. So like if it's Roja, don't go watch everybody's review of Roja and be like, oh, everybody says to go get, you know, Elysium, so I'm going to get Elysium. Like, try your hardest to get a discovery set and go through as many fragrances from the line as possible, because sometimes people write off brands if they just run into a couple bad experiences. You might say like, man, you know, I've heard people say crazy stuff before, like, you know, Roja, I'm not into it. I smelled the Taif Oud and the Oceania and it's just not for me. Really? 2 fragrances made you write off Roja, who has like 50 fragrances to his name and is renowned as one of the best niche perfumers in the world? You wrote it off because you smelled 2 fragrances and thought that the entire line imitated that? Get into a discovery set. Another great thing about a discovery set is you get to understand a house. It's amazing to me, Micah, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this, but like, if I've ever smelled a discovery set, your walls start to come down, because rather than thinking about fragrance in terms of like, what would I use this for? You start thinking about, why did they make these fragrances? What's the brand about? What's the story here? And you kind of get outside of yourself and it becomes more about the art. Like, what were they going for and what are they trying to create here? And you kind of just get in this unbiased mindset of like, just smelling a fragrance with no obligation to it. Like, all you have to do is sit down and smell all these fragrances. What a fun thing. And when you get outside of yourself, you start to get into this cool place where you can own a fragrance that you don't necessarily know where you'd wear it, but it just speaks to you. And that's a really cool thing, because everybody can agree that the longer you're in fragrance, the more your nose changes. And all of our noses don't go in the same direction. Like, I have tons of fragrances that I'm just drawn to, have no clue where I'll wear them. Has that been your experience at all? Like certain stuff that you're like, I would never wear this, and then now you wear it?
Um, I mean, City Rhythm, Martha's Vineyard, that one, I got it, and my first impression on that one, I was like, this is just feminine. Like, I'm never gonna wear this one. It's a waste of $170. And like, as I've worn it, it's grown on me. Especially like when I wear it to school, I get so many people, you know, buzzing around me, giving me compliments. So yeah, you know, that does definitely happen. And I feel like as a whole, as you were kind of saying, people need to try as many fragrances as they can. Try, you know, a whole, you know, try one fragrance from each line in a house, opposed to just trying one whole line. I feel like the biggest thing is just not being able to put your opinion out, even if it's not the popular opinion. but also, not just saying, as you said, oh, I don't like these two fragrances from Mont Blanc, so the whole line is bad.
And we do that a lot with designers, especially. Like, designers are so easy to crap on for some reason with people over 25, because it's like a been there done that thing, and they just start like really taking a crap on a lot of different stuff. Like, oh, the Dolce and Gabbana, yeah, it's okay. Like, and that's one of the reasons why, like, for instance, I will always, and I'm gonna do a memoir on Versace Eros Original, because it's like some stuff you truly don't graduate from. And sometimes we say things just to feel good about ourselves. Like, it's like this weird thing we do to justify the fact that we're obsessive compulsive and have hundreds of fragrances. The only way we can justify that is by like taking a crap on fragrances that we have, spent a lot of time with. But like Eros, a lot of people won't buy Sauvage or Eros or Bleu de Chanel just because, like, it's almost like the fragrance community has made you feel bad for loving such a fragrance that everybody knows about. Like, if you don't have an exclusive fragrance that most people don't know about, you don't get respect, or you're seen as your nose isn't that educated, or that you're not really a collector. And it's really goofy. Eros is one of the best fragrances I've ever smelled, period. There's just something about it. And again, I'm just SB. That may not be true to all of you guys. That might be blasphemy. But in my world, it's special. And I want people in Fragcom to just follow your voice. If you think something is special, shout it to the rooftops. Who cares what the heck everybody else says? If you think it's special, stand on it. And that's what I like about going through a discovery set, is when you sit down with a discovery set, it's like each time you smell a sample, it like takes down one of your walls. And by the end of this set, it becomes more about the art and the fact that you get to smell. Like, there's nothing more fun than smelling a whole discovery set in one sit down, especially if you find something that you're like, I gotta have this. Like, as long as there's just one of those, like, the whole set was worth it. Um, but I feel like you start to have this like guard let down where you just start having fun, and then you also feel close to the house, because then when you find a house that has like a couple of things you really like, now you want to know more about the house, because you're like, you really, like, everybody knows what it feels like to be like, man, I have like 5 Manceras, these are my favorites, I really love the house. Or like any brand, right? It's cool to have, there's people out there that collect all of one house just because there were like 4 fragrances that set them on fire, and they just want to support the brand. So buy discovery sets. That unlocks a different part of you in your journey, and it helps you to really ask yourself, like, do I really love this, or am I just trying to have name recognition with the community so people don't think I'm a bottom tier collector or something like that? Like, really have fun, guys. But anyway, yeah, just to wrap up a little bit, I got this private collection of Mont Blanc, which comes with black Meisterstück, patchouli ink, extreme leather, and vetiver glacier. And they do smell more niche. I'll do a review of this at a later time, but they're significantly more complex than the regular Mont Blanc line. And so, and the bottles look amazing. Like, go look up Mont Blanc private line. They look like the 100 ml Ferragamo bottles, just like these sleek, bulky, like luxurious, like brick looking bottles. So try all the fragrances, get into some stuff. Maybe you don't like the typical stuff, go check out the private line. They have like 15 fragrances in the private line. But I learned some stuff I didn't know today. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Micah, do you have any last minute thoughts about the house dive? Did anything stand out to you about the brand you didn't know that you were intrigued about?
Well, I suppose one thing I had no clue that Presence was their first one.
Me
I think that's
either.
intriguing, and that kind of makes me want to pick it up. If I do see it. I feel like that was interesting for sure. I mean, I don't know. I feel like as a whole, just my general thoughts on Mont Blanc, they can make some incredibly amazing, mass appealing fragrances. Like they just know how to make fragrances that work.
Yeah, and like I already knew this, but like just to sometimes just hearing the truth out loud like helps you rethink some things. Like when they went into the mass appeal situation with their distribution, their goal was to make very easy to wear, accessible luxury, but specifically go into the marketplace for fresh out of the shower, work fragrances, and date night. So, like, it's almost like a Jeremy Fragrance approach or something where they could have just named it, office, night, and whatever. And that's really important because some people might say, like, man, well, I hear this a lot of times. Yeah, Mont Blanc Legend Spirit, it's a great fragrance, utility wear, but it's just not that special for me. But, it's great for like a nice utility wear. It's like, that's exactly what they wanted to make. Right. And so, in that sense, it's like they're not trying to do what a lot of us want them to do. They're trying to do very practical stuff for fresh out of the shower, suit and tie going to work, and sexy date night. And they don't want to walk any other line. And they're also, they also put themselves out there as saying, we don't want to make complex fragrances. We want to make super practical, appealing fragrances that feel luxurious, but that accomplish a very simple task. And you want to feel good doing it. And when you look at their line from that lens, they've done that. They've done that very consistently. So, that was interesting for me to see because it's like, I think a lot of times we want brands to do things that they like openly have said they don't want to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are you mad, bro? They're not going to make that. So just go to a different house. Stop harping on them for keeping things simple. They said, it's like, we sell oranges. Man, they don't sell grapes though. And they're just sitting there like, we only sell oranges. We sell great oranges. And you go around telling your friends like, man, look at that house, man. They got those oranges, but they don't do grapes. They don't do kiwi. Like, it's just a weird thing to complain about. But anyways, that's all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this house dive on Mont Blanc. Let us know in the comments, like, if any of this information was new to you. And what I'm also want to know is, like, put in the comments, what was your first Mont Blanc purchase? And what's your favorite Mont Blanc purchase? I'm really interested to hear that. And then the third thing I want to know is, have any of you guys smelled the private line and purchased it? Really curious to hear that because I think the private line on discounters you can get from about 60 to $100. So it's just a small jump up from the designer prices. Not necessarily designer discount prices, but the designer retail prices. It's just a little step up. Certainly affordable if you want to have something a little bit more complex. But definitely get your nose on those if you haven't. Micah, any last words for the people?
I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope I did a good job being a co-star. I know Scent Bubble did a great job. Show Scent Bubble some love. Make sure to go show me some love as well.
Absolutely. Micah, hey, listen, man, it's always a pleasure to sit down and hear your perspective. I love your consistency online. I like your perspective on fragrance. You're always super truthful, super honest. And like one thing I noticed about Micah, he's in his journey. Sometimes I watch people online and I feel like they're kind of like trying to imitate somebody else's journey. And they kind of end up moving in such a way where you just don't feel the authenticity. I really feel like when I watch Micah's content, like he is just a guy who loves fragrance, who's having a journey with fragrance, and he gives you guys the privilege of putting a camera on himself so you guys can see it. And then on top of that, he listens to his community and serves his community. So I really appreciate that. All my audience, if you care about SB at all, definitely follow Micah. Show him love. He's one of the only guys that also does like Q&A hangouts. So, you know, I always tell people like you need to be doing Q&As more because when people search fragrance online, there's nobody live. So if you could do Q&As at night, it's like a game changer for channel growth. I think the highest, I did a live one night for like an hour and a half and I got 77 subs. So there's just substantial growth that can happen in there. But more importantly, it's a way for people to access you personally and like feel like they kind of get their own chat GPT of fragrance available to them. And it's a fun way to get in touch with people that actually support and rock with your channel very consistently. So that's really cool. Micah's audience is really loyal in that way. All right, guys. Hey, listen, like, comment, subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell for both of us because we drop content all the time. I'm going to put a video on the left and right hand side because the show's over right now, but it can continue for you guys. So the algorithm's going to see what you've been searching for and recommend some stuff based off this channel. Matter of fact, I'm also going to put up our last episode Micah and I did on the Wheel of Fragrance so you guys can enjoy that. Micah, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have you on here. You're welcome anytime. And guys, we appreciate you guys for your support. Let's build the fragrance community that we want to see. With that being said, hope you guys have a blessed week. And until next time, peace.
Peace, everyone.